and you can see the nervousness. You can almost see the disgust in her face, and kind of like, oh gosh, these Christians who love their nation. The hell is that? What are your values based on, lady? Like, what are the Western values based on, if not Christ and natural God-given rights? His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just behind the skin.
He was killed because his words made a difference, because he was showing people the light, and he was killed by the dark.
Turning Point USA, not backing down. I think this is a show of force, which is exactly what we saw yesterday at the Charlie Kirk Memorial in Glendale, Arizona. A lot of people, of course, mourning, a lot of emotions. We had tears, we had laughter, we had joy, we had sorrow, lots of mourning, of course. But the big takeaway, I think, was the amount of love, the amount of support who showed up there in Arizona. And your boy was down there, and you can see this is where we were waiting. This was a post from me. Now, Viva, and we were making our way in, and Viva decided to climb up on this dumpster, and we all got to start singing. And so this was the crowd kind of where we were waiting to get in, and you can see it was massive, and you can't even get the sense of it. But of course, from Viva's video, you can. But that's what was happening there. So he got up there, led the crowd in the national anthem. Here, let me just show you a little bit of this so you can see from our perspective.
Is there any people you see? What do you think, about 10,000? That's probably
All right, so a lot of people. Viva is doing some traffic control. Here is how it looked from his perspective over there outside the stadium, just so you can see the wall of people. All right, and here we go. So that's inside the trash can. Oh, some Pacifico. So there we go. All right, so now that went all the way around. Okay, the line was like a big U. So the line went from like all these people. We were at the front basically right here where we were, and we have been waiting since about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And so that line, you can see, goes all the way back over here. Okay, I can't even explain how many people there were. It was insane. And we were just, everybody was just kind of just crowded in, trying to get through. And it was just amazing. So Viva led the crowd in the national anthem. Here's a little bit of this from up on high. Yeah.
How's it going? All right. Was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave from the land?
Woo! Yeah, baby. All right, so that was from Viva, and it was awesome. I spared you guys some of the singing, but your boy was just down there on the ground. We had Alexis, we had our friend Michael and Natalie with us, and we met a bunch of awesome people who were all going there to celebrate the life of Charlie Kirk. So it was just an amazing time. Now, Viva was doing some amazing posting, and so this is where we were seated inside the stadium, and your boy was right to the right of Viva, and I was having a difficult time uploading videos, and he was just banging them out, so we're just kind of jipping off Viva's videos. Thank you, Viva. But he was also in, once we got inside, we didn't have, the best sight of the stage, and so we were kind of tucked behind the stage. You can see the stage is on the left over here. But we were there, and this is 50,000 people in unison singing Alleluia. Okay, it was amazing. Andrew Colvett said, our production and our streaming partners tracked over 100 million overall streams for today's tribute to Charlie. This is just what they know about. It's likely much larger. Over 100 million people just heard the gospel proclaimed again and again by speaker after speaker. Truly remarkable for Charlie. And it's absolutely right. I was looking at the YouTube numbers as we were sitting. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Everybody was there. The overflow was absolutely packed. There were still people outside. And it was, I think, a reckoning, really. I mean, if you're on the other side of this and you're watching this groundswell of support burgeoning all across America and you're a Democrat, Stephen Miller came out, Don Jr. yesterday came out. They're like, now's the time to join us. All right. We're on the side of righteousness. We've got the vibrancy of the Holy Spirit, baby. And so it was, I think, massive beyond even what you can realize what was happening there. Basically, the entire White House was there. And so lots going on. And even Elon was there. And he said every seat in this giant arena that isn't roped off for security is packed to the ceiling. Honored to be here, all for Charlie Kirk. And that's right where we were, right over here. And they had signs and it was beautiful. And I think it even filled up even more than that because like we were kind of tucked over here, I think, behind the stage. But that was from Elon. He was happy to be there, 100 million plus. And the reaction is a little bit nervousness coming over from this woman over on MSNBC. And this one's funny because she's like, well, it's kind of working, like unleashing this whole strategy of like constitutionality and the Christianity and natural rights and how they're all interrelated. And she's, if you package this thing up with a nice little bow on it and people are going to eat it up because it's real and it's based on principle. Here's this short clip.
What you are seeing here is a movement called Christian nationalism that merges Christianity as it's been practiced in America for, centuries with a very specific interpretation of what the founding fathers wanted, what Aristotle wanted, going all the way back to the ancients. You saw Larry Arnn, who is the president of Hillsdale College and a proponent of this strain of interpretation of the Bible, merge Christianity and protecting the Western civilization values into one and the same thing. It's a very somewhat convoluted argument, but if you distill it into the right talking points, it really hits you in the patriotic heart area, as it were.
You're damn right it does. It hits hard, baby, and it was good. And I think it's hitting a lot of people waking up from a little bit of a slumber, kind of, oh, it's just the left-wing crazies. They're just out there, so what if they want to chop their kids' genitals off? Who cares? Let them do their thing. Now they're realizing, I think, where this is going, many people, and there's a revival. There's inspiration that is percolating, and you can see the nervousness. You can almost see the disgust in her face, and kind of like, oh gosh, these Christians who love their nation. The hell is that? What are your values based on, lady? Like, what are the Western values based on, if not Christ and natural God-given rights? Erika Kirk also, they gave an interview, and the New York Times reported this over yesterday, the day of the memorial, and here's what they're reporting, because Erika Kirk also mentioned some of this in her testimony. So in an interview, we also learned this fact, that the wife of Charlie, Erika, had implored him to wear a bulletproof vest, implying that he didn't wear a bulletproof vest. So that begs the question, what went on with the bullet? Why is there no exit wound? Because many people were thinking that it just hit a plate and kind of ricocheted up this direction and got lodged, in his head somewhere. And that's where we see a lot of the damage. So ricochet up into the neck, into the back of the head. So if that is not what happened, if he was not wearing a plate and there wasn't anything that deflected it, then the next question is, how does a 30-06 not exit the body when it hits a soft spot in the neck? So lots of questions now, but this is a new fact. A lot of people were having this conversation, and this article seems to imply that he was not wearing a vest. So Erika Kirk, they write, during the past 11 days, Erika has found herself returning to a single moment, talking about when Charlie was too excited to sleep. She said his adrenal glands were going off. Bing, 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 bing. She recalled during an hour-and-a-half interview on Thursday, 8 days after Mr. Kirk 31 was gunned down, saying he got up and I could hear him eating something in the kitchen. He'd been waiting all summer to begin touring. These were like Olympic events for him, and he was just so excited. Now, he fell asleep. She texted him, I love you. And as he left, he said, today is going to be a great day, man. So Erika, 36, spoke in a composed voice while fighting tears during this interview. She said, I'm allowing myself to feel this so deeply, she said, without medication, without alcohol. The Lord is giving me discernment. She sat in workout clothes with her legs folded under her on a couch in a rented condo in Scottsdale. Her husband often used the condo as a way station, and she had a pendant around her neck of St. Michael that Charlie was wearing when he was shot. The medics ripped it from the body while attempting to stop the bleeding. A trace of blood remained in the crevice of the cross. The bathroom floor of the condo was still littered with towels from the last shower of Charlie. A little more than a week ago to this day, she says, I can't go into my bedroom. I'm rotating where I sleep. Now, Turning Point announced the day before the interview that Kirk, Erika, would replace Charlie as the chief executive. Andrew Colvett described her as its beating heart, the spiritual center, and life force. But he said that no one could be expected to fill the shoes of Charlie, obviously. And still, numerous Turning Point staffers had received fortitude. Erika had a lot of success. Miss USA, Miss Arizona, and others. Erika said Charlie was like a son to him, to Mr. Trump, and the president's tone was soft and embracing, she said, when she talked to Trump. Now here's more. Mrs. Kirk provided the outside world with a glimpse of her resolve after an emotional 15-minute live stream, which we saw. And here is more about the actual death. Now, on the evening before Mr. Kirk traveled to Utah, Charlie, he and his wife met for dinner in Phoenix with a friend who is a faith leader. The purpose was to pray together over Kirk's tour, going on a tour of 20 campuses. Both Erika and the friend were worried. Charlie, let's talk and pray for you. Mr. Kirk, Charlie, whose appearances on college campuses drew ardent support and fierce condemnation, had received numerous death threats over the past years and had been traveling with a security team for months. At the dinner, Erika employed her husband to start wearing a bulletproof vest. When he demurred, the friend said, well, why don't you stand behind bulletproof glass? Charlie Kirk said, not yet. He said he felt confident in his team and that there would be additional security in Utah. But Erika, like several of her husband's subordinates, had occasionally heard him imply that his life could be cut short. She found herself wondering if a part of him had already surrendered to that. It had been Erika's plan to accompany her husband to Utah, but her mother was also undergoing a medical treatment in Phoenix the same day. Home needs you, said Charlie. Stay with your mom. They agreed that she would instead travel with him on the next leg when he went over to Colorado. Now, Erika was sitting in her mother's hospital room after she's getting out of surgery at 11:23 local time when Michael McCoy, Charlie's assistant, called her phone. In retrospect, she said she knew the words, he's been shot, before this assistant even screamed them. Now, Mr. Robinson, the shooter, had texted his partner saying, I've had enough of Charlie's hatred. Then Charlie's chartered plane went back to Scottsdale, picked up Erika, brought her out. He was pronounced dead as she was in the air, flying to Utah to be with him. She said, I'm looking at those clouds in the mountains. It was such a gorgeous day, and I was thinking, this is exactly what he last saw. Sheriff met Erika at the hospital, offered her the option of seeing the body, but she said, advised against it. The bullet, he explained, had ravaged Mr. Kirk's neck. With all due respect, said Erika, I want to see what they did to my husband. She was bracing for the worst, but what she saw surprised her. His eyes were semi-open, and he had this knowing Mona Lisa-like half smile, like he died happy, like Jesus rescued him. The bullet came, he blinked, and he was in heaven. She had not been able to kiss him goodbye when he left the house earlier that morning, so she did right then. Now, she was Miss Arizona and an entrepreneur, Christian-themed clothing, and her background was highly successful, right? Even before they got married. And what we saw at the memorial yesterday was just a beautiful set of advice even from Erika, right? A beautiful recollection of what they had and how other people can have that in their lives. And that was also inspirational for many. Now, Miss Kirk prepares for the memorial services. She was there. She said, this is God's plan, right? But God's plan is always greater than ours. And she sees a divine logic to this, saying Charlie was a young prophet whose fleeting life has achieved a lasting resonance after his martyrdom. In her view, a young but towering spiritual voice was silenced by a young lost soul. I'm a strong believer that this was God's plan, she said, and it's so clear-cut, it couldn't be more Charlie. She added, I've had so many people ask, do you feel anger toward this man? Like, do you want to seek the death penalty, Erika? I'll be honest, she says. I told our lawyer, I want the government to decide this. I do not want that man's blood on my ledger, because when I get to heaven and Jesus is like, eye for an eye? Is that how we do it? And that keeps me from being in heaven, from being with Charlie. She's not going to allow that to happen. And of course, yesterday, she also had that moving moment where she said, I forgive that young man. Now, we've been asked about the bullet and where the bullet came from, where it went, what kind of bullet was it, where did it land, did it bounce off a plate or something concealed under Charlie's shirt? And we've got some reporting on that. So Andrew Colvett, the producer for Charlie, is now talking about this. We also saw Candace Owen said she saw some other video from behind Charlie and there was no exit wound. So if a 30-06, which is a large caliber weapon, goes into your neck, you would imagine that there'd be something on the back end. Candace said that there was no exit wound. Andrew Colvett confirms it, saying, I want to address some of the discussion about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize, this is somewhat graphic. But in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle, and I want people to know. I just spoke with the surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital, and here we have a quote. He said the bullet, quote, absolutely should have gone through. Yeah. Which is very, very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. So that sounds credible. That would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc. But it didn't go through Charlie. Charlie's body stopped it. Now, I mentioned to his doctor that there were dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent, and he replied, it was an absolute miracle that somebody else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just behind the skin. Even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him. Remarkable and miraculous. And there are miracles that can happen, no doubt about that. My question is, what did the ballistics say about the bullet? Was it the full, bullet? And where in the skin was it? Just beneath the skin? I mean, just like here and just kind of tucked right here? Or did it, was it up in the skin up here somewhere? I don't know. So we're going to see if we get the autopsy report and, if we can understand what happened here. But this is the latest from Andrew Colvett, and I'm not sure that it settles the issue. I think a lot of people are saying there's just no way that the bullet could not go through. So maybe he was wearing something, but as it comes to the body plate, this guy, Chris Martinson, said he was not wearing a vest. Okay, here's a photo. It definitely doesn't look like he's wearing anything, right? Doesn't look like there's anything really, straps or anything on him. And he went through and looked at a bunch of the possible plate carriers, and you kind of see stuff, right? You kind of see these braces and supports that would probably be showing through a shirt, right? So yeah, some strange stuff. Did it hit a pendant? Did it hit a microphone lapel? You can see Charlie, that looks like a cross necklace and his nipples. So the plate would have to be like right there. So like there really is no, really hard to be a plate. That looks like a cross. Cross, of course, could be on top of the plate, but yeah, it's really strange. Elon is paying his respects at the Charlie Kirk Memorial yesterday, and he gave an explanation as to why they killed Charlie.
Why was he killed?
He was killed because his words made a difference, because he was showing people the light, and he was killed by the dark.
Nice, Elon. Exactly right. And our friend Joe Polish, you know him from Genius Network, he shared this one. Tucker Carlson is catching a lot of grief today for telling a true story yesterday that apparently irritated a bunch of folks. But Joe Polish was saying, man, there was a lot of courage there as well, because a lot of people were there behind the bulletproof glass, right? Giving speeches. Tucker Carlson was not. And Joe Polish called that out. Joe Polish had a nice seat. I think he was in a suite over there somewhere. So he had a nice seat. Obviously, I didn't see the stages, so I don't know, how many speakers were behind it, how many were not. Certainly looked like to me there were a lot of people behind the glass, but Tucker specifically went out and no bulletproof glass around him, right? I suppose he could have gone over there to that podium, but pretty interesting. So Joe Polish called that one out, not standing behind the bulletproof glass with courage and conviction. So we saw that. Now, Caroline Leavitt was commenting on this today from the White House press briefing room, and she said that what we saw from Erika Kirk and her moment of forgiveness for the man who murdered her husband in cold blood was one of the greatest acts of grace we've ever seen.
Now, before I open it up to questions, I do want to speak on the heinous political assassination of Charlie Kirk. As President Trump powerfully stated yesterday, this assassination was an attack on everything that makes the United States of America the greatest country on earth. But that attack has completely failed. The heartwarming response from the overwhelming majority of the American people over the past 2 weeks is all of the proof that you need. The assassin who took Charlie's life can destroy flesh and blood, but he can never destroy the values that Charlie stood for. All across the country, millions of Americans have prayed, hosted vigils, attended church services, became politically engaged for the first time, and honored the legacy of Charlie and the ideals he died speaking for. The beautiful memorial service attended by President Trump in 100,000 great Americans in State Farm Stadium yesterday was just the latest example. And Erika Kirk's mercy was one of the greatest acts of grace this world has ever seen. May God continue to watch over Erika and their beautiful children.
Yes, and the president was also there supporting Charlie and the family. And on the way back, he said, you know what the Democrats are? They're responsible for this.
Your son had a very welcoming message today, welcoming people to the Republican Party. Love of country, love of family, love of God. So I ask you, what did the Democrats stand for at this point?
I think chaos, confusion, anger, losers. They don't even want to extend the opening. We have a very successful country. If we gave them everything they wanted, they're deranged. If we gave them everything they wanted, they wouldn't extend, in my opinion. They say, oh, they want to meet with me. It's nonsense, but I'll meet with them. But no, they're angry and they took a big loss. They're doing worse now than they were during the election. So, they're doing very badly.
Well, they do, some of them stand for murder. So they've got that going for them. But people are recognizing it. And our side, I feel like, is ramping up. And we've got a lot of energy. And we're on the side of righteousness. We don't celebrate murder of people in cold blood like they do. And so Turning Point will march on. We'll be here in the wings supporting them best we can. And, of course, continuing to pray for Erika and the Kirk family.